Welcome to Culture Shift with Duda Penteado, the archivist. And I have here a good friend, Angus, who has this incredible theater company that really kind of specialize, or there's a lot of Shakespeare and music and other things. So we're gonna talk about all this stuff today. And I want to say as an introduction to you, you've been in this neighborhood for many, many years. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
How it's been you being here in the Bergen Lafayette Art District neighborhood. So Angus, let's begin with your beginning.
Well, I'm from New Zealand, a small town on the coast of New Zealand. So grew up getting sunburnt, going to the beach. Very quiet town in New Zealand. Um, yeah. So it's very different from being in the New York area.
Sure, sure. A lot of sharks in New Zealand?
No, no, no,
No, no.
no.
Australia, a lot of sharks.
Australia's got all
Coastal
Australia's
Africa, right?
Australia's got all the nasty stuff. They got spiders and funnel web spiders and
New Zealand, oh cool.
no, we got nothing. No.
I love,
Even our birds are flightless. The kiwi, doesn't even fly.
oh, I
It's
love
so
that.
relaxed. They're like, oh, we don't have to fly.
Oh my God,
They just
I
walk
love that.
around.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, you also mentioned in one conversation we had like your connection New Zealand and England.
Well, they used to call New Zealand England with palm trees because it was very English. English immigrants. It was colonized by the English,
Mm.
and all our sort of cultural sort of things came. We only had two channels, and it was always the BBC. So it was all English TV. All our radio stations were sort of mirrored off, not mirrored, but influenced by English, traditions. All the schools were taught English curriculum. So yeah, it was. So what was interesting was when bands would come to, we had a lot of English bands that would come and play in New Zealand. Um, we had English cars. We didn't have Japanese cars or anything. So
Mm.
uh, English people, when they came to New Zealand, they'd be like, "This is strange," because it's even our skinheads were tanned. It was funny because when one of the bands came to New Zealand, when the Clash came to New
The
Zealand,
Clash,
the
wow.
Clash came to New Zealand, and Mick Jones, I was talking to, he was funny because he was like, your skinheads look way too healthy. They're all sort of brown, and he said it just looks wrong.
Wow,
So yeah, yeah.
that's cool. So growing up, how did you develop the connection to you bounced in New Zealand, England, all the influence, and then it came up theater and came up this guy called Shakespeare. How is that relationship came about?
Oh, it's a long story. I mean, really, the thing was that changed my life. One of the first things that changed my life was hearing the Clash and hearing the Sex Pistols
Mm.
in New Zealand, and in 1976 when we were all kids, and that just blew everybody's minds. And it was one of those things that when you're 15 years old and you just hear this, and it's really confrontational music. That it sort of blows your mind. And there were so many good bands um, that uh, when those bands would come to New Zealand, we'd go and see them, and it was just like a, a, a direct connection to that music scene in England. And obviously it came from that English scene, which was very depressed economy, very sort of tough life. We didn't really have that, so but it sort of resonated, and we just loved it. And then we found out about American punk rock, and yeah, it was really blew everybody's minds. So yeah,
Yeah, you're right. England always had such a big um importance in music. They always had some big,
well, the Beatles, the
yeah,
Stones, you know what I mean? The British invasion. I mean,
yeah,
conquered America.
yeah. And it's like always like creating incredible. I always think about the famous song of Pink Floyd, We don't need no education. And they showing like the system in England. Remember, the kids need to sit down and be well
Well,
behaved.
punk
You
rock
know?
destroyed Pink
Yeah,
Floyd.
yeah,
We
it's
were just like not interested
yeah,
in Pink Floyd at all. We were like,
yeah,
ah,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
no, no.
You know, but then punk rock has such a powerful. It's very interesting when I think about culture. I say culture crash, right? Because England has this very the queen, the king,
But
all
punk
of
rock
that,
was
and then
was a
punk
reaction.
rock comes to just like stop with that. We're gonna show you what the reality is, and this
Yeah.
is really the counter reformation by using art, right, against the system.
Well, it was the music, it was the clothes, it was the attitude, it was, you know, I mean, it was in your face, and it was sort of naughty. So when you're a kid, when you're,
Yeah.
you know, you're
You
little,
just love that, right?
you're like, yeah, it was like, and your parents hated it. So of course, we all loved it, and it was funny. I just saw my old schoolmaster about a month ago, and he said he used to come and knock on my because I went to a private school, boarding school, and he used to knock on my door and say,
Back
back
then,
then, yeah, yeah, and he would ask me, "Can I borrow some of your punk rock records?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah," and he would sort of go off and listen to them because he wanted to know what this cultural wave was, a tsunami, and he would come back and go, "Well, that was rather energetic." He was going, "Can't say I loved it," but he was going, "I totally understand,"
yeah, right,
and
right.
yeah. So yeah, I just really punk rock changed my life. So when I went to university, I went to law school, and after 2 years of law school, I was like, no, I'm actually going to stop, and I went to England, and I brought a rail pass, and I just looked at the paper, and wherever a band was playing, I'd just go and see it. So I saw the Jam in the South, I saw Stiff Little Fingers in Belfast. I would just go and take a train and go and see these bands because I just wanted to be part of that whole thing. I was obsessed. So
So Angus, there's two stories about you that became part of one, right? Your passion to music, then and then correct me if I'm wrong. Later on, you also work with music and bands, right? Representing
not for
and producing, right?
no. I actually
What did you
started
do with
with
music?
well. I was a banker first in England because when I finally got my law degree, I went to England, went
So
to
you
London.
went back to school.
I went
You
back to
first
school.
went back to
No, after the year away,
okay,
I just went and saw all these bands,
okay,
lost half my hearing, came back to
okay.
finish my law degree and my business degree.
And
Went
New Zealand.
in New Zealand, then went back to London
Mm.
and got a job in London in a bank, and then to try that out, and that was sort of the crazy '80s. And got pretty bored by doing that actually, but it was still in London. It was still great because it was still great music, and then that's when I sort of got this Shakespeare virus by I saw Anthony Hopkins, Cannibal Lecter.
Sure,
I
sure.
saw him in 1988 or '87 doing King Lear, and it blew me away.
Oh wow,
And then I would just
he's an amazing actor.
yeah, he was. I mean, then he was young, and he was just like this coiled bear who was just like running around the stage, just like it was really disturbing. It was really I
Wow,
hadn't
wow.
seen anything like that, like to see it live. And this guy, and then at the end of it, he came out and was just he'd sort of taken the clothes off, and he just became a regular guy again. It sort of blew
Wow.
me away. Um,
How old are you back then?
I don't know, 23 or something.
Mm,
But yeah,
mm.
and I saw it as not as a Shakespeare fan or an English literature fan or anything. That Shakespeare meant nothing to me at school. I wasn't interested. I was just interested in punk rock, really. Um, but yeah, just seeing that, and then I would there's a big theatre and a theatre complex or arts complex called the Barbican in London, and I would actually scoot through it to go home as a shortcut because it was cold, and they would have the Royal Shakespeare Company, and they'd be like, and the Brits are really good because they have cheap tickets on the night.
Mm.
So I'd walk past and go, oh, what's on tonight? And they go, well, it's Jonathan Pryce and Macbeth. And Jonathan Pryce is a really fantastic actor, and I would go, oh, I will go and see that. Go and have a few Guinnesses before, go and see it.
Wow, some good beer.
Yeah. You have to have a few beers for Shakespeare. I mean, you've got to be half drunk.
Yeah.
They were all half drunk when they saw Shakespeare in his day.
Mm.
So, yeah, I would see that and then go, "Well, okay, that was great." And then later on in the week, I'd walk past, "Oh, what's on tonight? Oh, it's Romeo and Juliet. Oh, I'll go and see that." And so that's how I didn't approach Shakespeare in any intellectual way at all. It was all about just going, "Oh my God, that's so good." Or, some of the more obscure plays, I would go, I didn't really understand 20% of that or 30% of that, but it was still really good. But it made me want to go back and made me curious. And, and they're just like, that's the cream. The Royal Shakespeare Company is the cream of, English actors, of course. Half of them have all got jobs in Game of Thrones, it's sort of funny. But so it was that exposure to that.
And in Game of Thrones is shot a lot in New Zealand too, or no?
I don't know, actually.
Always, I heard New Zealand some other place.
I mean, Xena was. Lord of the Rings was.
Because okay,
But
Lord of the Rings.
No, I think
Because the landscape, right, on New Zealand, like is
Lord of the
very-
Rings definitely.
Yeah.
But I think Game of Thrones is Ireland. I think actually.
Oh no, I think Game of Thrones also was shot in Spain.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I if I'm not mistaken, actually, I was in a way to going to the Dali Museum, the original one. When he died there, he turned his home into this castle museum. So we stopped in a place, and I'm almost sure was like 2 hours from Barcelona,
Okay.
and then we stopped in this place, and they did a lot of shooting
In the south, right? South of the
and
house.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
no,
think was
yeah.
Game of Thrones. And like, this is the town, and this is where they filmed.
Right.
So I think that was that. But so let me see if I put those pieces together. You just grew up in the atmosphere, England, New Zealand, and always like punk rock music was your thing, and
It
suddenly,
was everything. Everything.
boom, finally Shakespeare coming to the picture and leave an impression on you when you're about 23, 24, right?
Yeah, just to sing it as an idiot. I mean, I just sing it completely as an idiot. Yeah, really, because I just went, that was really good. Like seeing Anthony Hopkins and then seeing Jonathan Pryce, they're just top of their game. And you go, whoa. Because you're seeing it, you're not seeing something on a screen, you're seeing it live.
Sure.
And it's just, you're going, holy.
And that's the thing about theater, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's right there with you. Like film is amazing, but it's in a big screen, whatever.
Yeah.
But theater is like that's I always say there's when you're playing live music and theater, there's an exchange with the
Absolutely.
public there.
It's all
That
about
is
that.
incredible.
Yeah. And the other thing is that because it was, I'd sometimes see the same productions a couple of times because I was like, yeah, I'm walking past. So I would see when I'd see it again, I'd get something more out of it. And then I sort of realized that those plays are so rich and complex that it's, that they survive. I mean, I'd go and see the same play 2 days later and go, wow, I didn't get that before. But so it was, and that's what I really want. I really encourage people to go and see Shakespeare as an idiot, not as an idiot, but just, to experience it without any supposition or preconception that, oh, this is like, taking your medicine or it's intellectual. It's not. In Shakespeare's day, it wasn't intellectual. He was like Lin-Manuel Miranda of his day,
Mm.
So people didn't go to Shakespeare because they're like, oh, I'm going to go and see Hamlet because I'm an intellectual. They'd go because it was a really good play. And it blew everybody's minds because all of a sudden this actor's talking about an internal dialogue, like about, and then people are just like, what's this guy doing? So, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about Shakespeare is he's just really connects with the stories. Then you know makes sense, right? The struggles of politics and
Everything.
how people plot and how the one of the things I love is how women always being part of that. She's the wife of the king, or she's the one, and then what she's saying, how she's not allowing people to do this is very important in the game, right? In the game of human, I'm not saying just I'm not talking about party politics, but I'm talking about human politics. It's like it's intertwined both, right? And you see the evolution there. Those things still play today,
Absolutely.
you know?
And he would play with that because he would have a man playing a woman playing a man. So there's all these different layers, and yeah, and Shakespeare had a lot of powerful women in his plays. So, I mean, you can't say was he a feminist, but he definitely, there's a lot of strong women who are
True,
definitely not relegated to be characters.
true.
Yeah.
So another thing, okay, so let's go. So what happens next? Like in England, like you're watching Shakespeare. How did you come to America, and then how let's talk about how you come to America, but then Container Globe project came about.
Well, I uh, I ended up going. There's a reproduction of Shakespeare's original Globe. Okay, there was Shakespeare built his original theatre in 1599. So him and a bunch of actors and some businessmen got together and they built this theatre, and they built it outside of the city of London because the city of London was controlled. Their council was controlled by a bunch of Puritans, and the Puritans in those days actually thought that theatre was a manifestation of the devil, that the devil was using it as a way to corrupt people by putting ideas in their mind. And no, seriously,
Wow.
the Puritans hated theatre. They really thought it was an evil thing. So Shakespeare and his guys built. There was a city of London which was on the north bank of the Thames. They put their theatre on the south bank, which was outside the jurisdiction of the city of London,
Mm.
and so they basically could do almost what they wanted. And so that's what people would go and see. Like you go and see Hamlet was a new play in 03. I can't remember when it came out, but people would talk about, oh my God, this guy Shakespeare is putting out this new play, Hamlet. Okay, what's that all about? What's Richard III all about? What's Much Ado About Nothing? They were like, oh, it was like, they were big. That place, that theatre was built for 1,500 people. 3,000 people used to squash themselves in there, and they'd be jammed up together, and there was no intermissions in those days. So you'd be sitting there watching Hamlet for 4 hours. They would give you a thing of beer, a big thing of beer, like literally this big, and they'd give you a roll of paper because you were jammed in there with the beer down. You put the beer down beside you, start watching the play. There's no intermission. So you'd you'd roll the paper up and pee down it where you were standing.
Oh my God.
Where you were standing. Yeah, yeah. So, and the only reason why when you go and see a Shakespeare play now, they've got Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, intermission, is when he built an indoor theatre and he had the candles, right, to illuminate the indoor theatre. They would burn down because they were old beeswax candles. They'd burn down.
Right,
You
right.
have to change the damn candles. So they're like, oh, we have to put in an act to change the candles.
Wow.
So that's how
that's the intermission.
that's
thing.
intermission.
Wow.
Yeah, or the act, because they had to divide the play up somehow. But so they built actually a guy called Sam Wanamaker, crazy guy, director, really interesting guy. He ended up leaving America because of the McCarthy,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that he was a
Yeah.
communist. Well, they said that he was communist. So he went to England. He went, well, he was a big Shakespeare fan. He also directed Star Trek episodes. Really interesting guy. Went to England and went, well, where's the Globe? And they said, well, we don't have one. And he said, well, I'll build one. So he did. Took him 25 years to do it. And that's with the Globe in London. So long story short is I went after, loving seeing Shakespeare in a normal theatre and thinking that's what Shakespeare was. When you're sitting in a dark theatre, right? You're sitting in your seat, you're watching this whole play go on over there in front of you. At the Globe, you're standing in a pit with the actors right there in the daylight,
Mm.
and it was totally different because the actors engage with the audience.
Mm.
The audience responds. Sometimes the actors that will go, okay, you're the Army of France, you're the Army of England, have at it. and it's a much different experience. And it was so punk rock because what's punk rock? You're standing in a pit by the stage, the band is, blasting away. When you go to the Globe in London, you see the players right up there, and they're looking at you and talking to you, and it's not happening on a stage away from you in the dark where Hamlet's going to be or not to be, or alas poor Yorick, he's actually talking to the audience. He's going, my dad was killed by my uncle. He's sleeping with my mum. He's taken my kingdom. To be or not to be, whether I should stick around or should I check out? And he's talking to the audience, and people say stuff back. So you get this very dynamic, interactive. It really is different. So I was like, wow, this is so different and so exciting because it's so different. Instead of Shakespeare that I'd seen before on a normal stage, I was like, that's great. But then I was like, all of a sudden it's right there. So punk rock. The parallel.
Yeah.
You're standing there going,
I understand what you mean, man. The energy, right? It's
totally
just
different.
contaminating, and suddenly everybody's part of the play.
Totally.
And you become part of a scene, and it grows. It becomes what I call a full performance, right? It's incorporating everybody, all the elements.
Well, actually, it was interesting because the actors that had normally performed on a normal stage, they had to come out and learn how to use that space. So and built into the plays actually is a clues that the way that they would talk to the people on the ground, because the people on the ground are normally young, right? Because they can have the energy to stand there for 4 hours or 3 hours or whatever. The people that are sitting in the seats around are older. They get different jokes. They get different things out of the plays. So they get the poetry, they get the drama, the politics, if you like, the sort of different levels. Whereas the people down there, they laugh at the fart jokes. They laugh at, the sex jokes. They laugh at all the silly stuff.
Right.
And so there's a real sort of dynamic change in the way the play ebbs and flows and changes, and and the actors all get into the audience. They run around the audience, and it's so different. And that I found it really, really exciting. I still like going and seeing normal Shakespeare, if you like. I mean, it's still, I went last night. But that thing of standing there and being right amongst it is so different. So, yeah.
Makes totally sense. So after those experiences, when you're like, I gotta build my own container globe, right? And project, and how did that came about? The U.S. When did you come to the U.S.? And then when you created your container globe project in the U.S., right?
Well, I came here first in 92, yeah, because I'd been working for a band called NXS in Australia as their business manager for 5 years, and then I got offered a job in New York to work for a music business company in New York, so I moved here.
So that's when the music started.
No, I'd started.
I knew you work in the music industry.
No, I started with NXS in Australia.
Oh, you started in Australia.
Yeah, no. So I worked with them for 5 years in Australia.
So you moved from banking to the music business.
Yeah.
So finally, the law and the banking came as service to you.
In a way, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're now back into music.
Yeah, but with the business side of music.
Yeah, but you connect with music.
Yeah. So that was good. And then so moved to New York, which was really, New York in 1991 or 92 was quite different. Gnarly, a lot more gnarly. And Brooklyn wasn't the sort of...
Oh, no, Brooklyn was crazy. I remember.
Yeah, man. I remember driving up 4th Avenue going...
I remember. Oh, Brooklyn is probably the fastest city in the country to transform completely. I saw the whole... Unbelievable what happened in Brooklyn.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you this. So how was the... working with tell me a little bit about how was your work with the music industry?
Well, I mean, I was super lucky because the first band I ever worked with was NXS, and they put out an album called Kick in 1987, and it sold, I think, 13 million copies straight out of the gate. So, they were touring in America, anybody was going, you've got to add another show. You've got to move from, you know, you're past clubs, you're doing arenas now.
Right.
So, for us, we were all like 20 something idiots. We were just like, well, I wouldn't say idiots, but we were just, it happened so fast. And in the 80s, there was so much money, because there was the songs being played on the radio. They had 6 singles from that album being played all over American radio. So we were just getting checks. It was, and
Party was on.
well, it was, yeah, I mean, it was great because it was in those days, man, there was like a lot of money coming in.
Yeah.
So you almost couldn't screw things up.
And the music is just very different, right?
Very
People sold people saw a lot of vinyls, right? And then
No, it was actually, no, that was the interesting time too, because people were, CDs were starting.
also the CDs.
So
But
it was
CDs, they were sold a lot of CDs too.
They sold a lot of CDs, and what was actually great is that a lot of bands that had back catalogs. So In Excess already had like 5 albums out behind, that they'd already done. So they already had a track record in America, but people were going, "Oh, CDs, the music quality is so great." So they were buying. They'd already bought the vinyl, so they were buying the CD as well.
Yeah, true.
So record companies just made out like pirates. They were just, because people had already bought the damn record, and they went and replaced all their vinyl collections, which is kind of funny now because people are going back to vinyl.
Yeah, guy was a super
Yeah.
collectible thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
But the music used to change so much, and the way they were making, and then they couldn't sell no more. It came Spotify. They started messing.
Yeah. No,
So
we
it
were
went you were in the good times
in the
of
good
music.
times. Yeah. Well, good times in terms of if you're an established band, it was a really good time
Yeah,
because
yeah,
In
sure,
Excess was a
sure,
big
sure,
band.
sure.
Um,
That's what I mean. Like if it was
Yeah.
a band moving,
But-
it became harder, right? The music business. What do you think?
different. It's different. It's in those days, the record company, the publishing companies were all powerful. So you couldn't get your record into a record store, into Tower Records, without going through a record
Sure,
company.
sure.
So there was, the Warners, the Sony, all those, evil record companies.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta go
All
to
run
the
by-
guys, or you don't go nowhere.
Yeah, you went nowhere. And then, they would sign bands. There were so many bands that I knew that would get signed and then not even dropped. If you're dropped, then you can sign with another record label. They would put them into, I called it the Twilight Zone or the Phantom Zone, where they wouldn't release you, but they wouldn't release any albums. So a lot of bands ended up dying because they couldn't form a new band. The record company wasn't going to release anything. So a lot of bands disappeared. It was really awful.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and now the thing is that, there's no record stores anymore. There are, of course,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, yeah. But they don't
and it-
dominate the way they.
they dominate. The record companies and the publishing
yeah,
companies
yeah,
don't
right.
dominate. They're not the gatekeepers anymore. Everybody's the gatekeeper. The good thing about
True.
the music business now is that everybody can make music and get the music out there. The bad thing about the music business is that everybody can make music and put their music out there.
Yes.
So now there's just this tsunami of just content.
Right.
Is it good or bad? I mean, in those days, and the other thing too is that if you wanted to put out a professional record, you had to go through the really expensive studio, right? Now, so many of those tools are on and come installed on your laptop.
I love having this conversation because it made me think you're right. And then this thing about, I guess, democratization through technology, and you're right. One of the good things is like you move on those dinosaurs that dominated the market, and you
Yeah.
have to bow down to them, or you didn't exist. That it happened through all the art industry, right? The visual arts, the big galleries, and today there's a lot of different ways to do business in visual
Yes.
arts. But also there's all these horrible artists or wannabe artists who don't know nothing about history of painting, putting this stuff out there.
Not doing the work. I mean, there's a lot of,
Yeah, not doing the work.
not doing the work. I mean, there's so many bands that I not that
And,
I
ba-
s-
and bands became also DJ, it became the problem. Now DJs there's a whole this general DJs now, and I'm like, just DJs that play all the people music. I don't, and filling stadiums. I'm like, oh, I don't know what happened,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
But
there's all the
then we sound
stuff.
old. Then we sound old, but
There's all this strange noise, right?
yeah.
But also a lot of more democratic opportunity in a way, right?
Yes. I mean, that's a good thing about it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I
Um,
agree. Talking about this, I think theater is the thing that remains in a way most difficult
yes, because you've got to find this place to
and
put theater on.
remains with, I guess, more integrity in a way of being diluted, right? Because to put a play is not that easy.
Well, it's not that easy, but also you have to find a space to put it on.
Right,
And
right, right,
sure,
right.
you can
So
put
it
on.
hasn't changed. I think theater out of all the art forms has
Yeah.
changed less.
That's absolutely. I think so.
Right?
Which is part of it is that I wanted to build a theatre based on that on Shakespeare's Globe, because of that environment and that exciting, interactivity or immersive quality of it. But also because I want it to be, very cost effective. It's way cheaper than building a normal theatre or outfitting a warehouse space to be a theatre. I mean, sure, you can put on theatre in a warehouse or in a car wash if you want. You know what I mean? But to do proper theatre, do proper shit, not proper, but to do any kind of theatre that's complicated, you know what I mean? Like a bigger thing, you have to find a space for that.
True.
And that's one of the problems or a thing that needs to be solved. So part of the reason for doing the container globe is because it's way cheaper than building a normal theatre or outfitting, converting as a warehouse space or whatever, which means that we can offer it as a space for more experimental theatre, for doing standard theatre if you want. If you want to put on a vanilla, I call it vanilla Shakespeare. If we're going to put on like a normal Hamlet, you can. But if you want to put on a crazy, post-apocalyptic Richard III, then do it. And we can fail. You know what I mean? And I look at it as there's also a inspiration. I don't know if you've heard of a place called Gilman Street. It's a warehouse. It's a sort of music venue in Oakland, in California.
Oh no, I've never been there.
Okay, so they started years and years ago, and basically Green Day started there, Rancid started there. It's when they were when Green Day was 14, they started playing.
Green Day,
and it was this. It's basically a crappy warehouse, but everybody can play there. So it's like this great incubator. So Green Day could play there when they were 13 or 14 or whatever. Rancid, all these punk rock bands. There's no judgment. It's just, and Miranda July, I don't know if you know her, she's a playwright and an author. She put on her first play there. They were like, yeah, do it. So it's that whole thing about, yes, you can. You can.
Yeah, just having the box for you to
have the box.
It's
a nasty, it's not fancy pants, it's not Broadway, but it's somewhere to put on and try stuff out. And people to fail. You got to fail, And that's the other inspiration for me, is that so many of these great bands came out from Gilman Street, helped them along. It was like their first steps.
True, I heard it. Yeah, you're right. Now you're talking about the California hub.
Yeah, with that East Bay punk.
Yeah,
there's a great documentary about it, and I find that really inspiring.
It's interesting because a lot of great things come from this sort of organic underground initiatives, right?
Yes.
Which is like, don't be afraid to fail.
Don't be afraid to fail. And fail in front of other people.
Just do it. Just do it.
In the first 20 times,
if it's going to work, it's going to work,
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does.
But then you try a different thing.
Yeah. But that thing of...
So that's what your framework for this container, and you can organize the containers, because the container globe, by the way, it is containers, the real containers. It's not just a poetic name, right? So the audience here understands. We're going to show some photos and some things later.
It's basically a big Lego set of
containers. It is a bunch of containers arranged in different ways. So let's talk about how you organize. I know you, the container globe, you also organize it in different ways. And then you did like sort of park activity, a festival, right? And brought children, education.
Yeah. Well,
How did you expand that?
the thing is that it's a theater, but it's also a performance venue. So we can do, we did two techno festivals there, and you can just put a DJ where the stages, and have a DJ there, and it's got um, galleries, and it works as a music venue as well. And part of the plan is that we wanted people to come to techno or to go and see rock and roll there, and some of them are going to go, "What is this crazy place? It looks like a Thunderdome. It looks like a post-industrial weird thing built from shipping containers. It doesn't look very Shakespearean." They're not nobody. A lot of people are not going to know that. I don't necessarily want them to know that, but if they come along and experience the space
Mm.
and go, "Yeah, I can stand next to the stage. It's gnarly, make a big noise." Some of them are going to come back and go, "Oh, what else are you doing?" "Well, we're doing some Shakespeare." "Well, we'll come along." And so some of the people that went to this techno festival said, "Oh, we'll come and see some Shakespeare," and they did. And
It's
that
amazing.
makes me happy, because some people, and not all of them loved it, but there'd be, if you get 50 people that come along because they went to a techno festival, and then they go, "Yeah, we'll go to, how much is the Shakespeare?" "Well, it's free." "All right, well, we'll go and see it."
So the Shakespeare interesting was cutting edge back then and is now today again to the container globe. Tell me that story about the kids, right? I love you told me story. Then you start kids start wanting to interpret Shakespeare because the container globe it creates such a playing field that they felt that yes we can do.
Well, we were working with the Kids Shakespeare Company in Detroit, and we sort of figured out, you know, that we had we put on Macbeth 2 years ago. It was an adult Macbeth, and the people in the Shakespeare, the Kids Shakespeare, said, "Well, we've got a Macbeth that we'd like to do, but it's only 40 minutes,
Mm.
and it's kid one." So that year we put on uh, the Macbeth, the adult one. So people went to see that. That was great. But then straight after it, we put on the kids Macbeth, which was hilarious because it's these kids. Macbeth's all about witches, and there's a lot of blood, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
sure.
so the kids all
There's a
loved
lot of
it.
killing on that
There's a lot
back
of
then.
killing, man. They just, kids
Yeah,
love that
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, and they can be the witches, and they can be
Right,
like
right, right.
walk around with
The
swords, and
ones killing,
yeah,
the
more
ones.
killing, and it's cool. So the kids got to see the real Macbeth. Then they did their own one. But what was cool was that a lot of people, the actors, saw the kids doing it and sort of talked to the kids about it, because the
Mm.
kids were blown away to see real actors doing it, and the adults got to talk to the actors got to talk to the kids and go, "Oh, it's really inspiring because the kids have no barriers or no." And for them, what I love about it is that um, the kids don't regard that weird Shakespearean language as a barrier or as something. They love it because it's a weird secret language that when they go to school, they can go, dost thou, but thy thumb at me, sir," and they can talk in this sort of weird language, and it's for them, it's like a weird superpower. So they end up growing up going,
Yeah.
Shakespeare's cool because it's, well, part of the thing is because they have this weird language. So they aren't scared by it. And, that's what I like. That's what I really like about it, is that the kids will grow up, get to know more and more Shakespeare. You know what I mean? So yeah, I liked it. And we did that again last year with Hamlet. This time we tried it with the kids doing the Hamlet first, and then we did the adult Hamlet. So yeah.
One of the things that I love, we're gonna close with this controversial. Let's talk about this one thing. We're talking me and you a while ago, and I ran. I start actually. Shakespeare is pop, right? Because Shakespeare is all over the world. I start watching. I start going to my first plays in Shakespeare in Portuguese in
Yeah.
Brazil, in my city, São Paulo,
Yeah.
and I was probably 19, 20.
Yeah.
I love this. This guy's really talking about this very profound drama of life, existential struggle of mankind. So I kept going to the next. And then I came back to the US and then I finally watched some Shakespeare in English,
Mm.
right? So, but I developed my love for him in Brazil. So when we're talking about, they're like, dude, the Shakespeare's pop is everywhere. I'm like, it's true. I heard in Portuguese the first time I saw the play in Portuguese. But recently I saw this documentary, very controversial about, but who was really Shakespeare?
Oh yeah,
Shakespeare really existed.
yeah,
You and
yeah.
I talking, but the interesting thing, like, man, they have hundreds of books and things talking about who was really. People made a lot of money, make drama out of the
Well,
Shakespeare thing.
everybody loves a conspiracy theory, you know.
True, true. What's
Um,
your take in that? Why so much controversial thing behind Shakespeare? It's just trying to make easy money. It's
there's a
just
bit of
talking
that.
about fame and trying to write on fame.
There's a bit of that. There's a bit of that. I think, people love a conspiracy. So there's a certain bunch of people that, and some of them are very respected Shakespeare actors, who can't believe that a guy who came from a small town in England, in Stratford, who didn't go to a university, ended up writing the most profound plays that we all have become like, this pillar of culture, right? Because they were
Right.
like, well, he didn't travel, he wasn't wealthy. He ended up being wealthy because he sold so many damn tickets.
Yeah,
to
but she
his-
wasn't like
no, no, no.
royal
No,
blood
no.
and
But my
you
take is
know.
that the guy went to a really good school, the grammar school that he went to. He read everybody, he could imagine, and he gets stuff wrong in his plays, like geographically wrong. And people were like, well, that shows that he didn't write them. Like, no, that shows, he's talking about Verona, or he's talking about
Did he leave? He didn't really go to Italy a little bit
no,
or
but you
no?
don't have to, and you could,
But he didn't, right? That's so
not
baloney
that
in
we
the
know of.
documentary.
No, 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 not that we know
He
of.
never went. None of you knows. He's just really a genius writer. Then he had a fantastic imagination
Yes,
and looked things in a very interesting and deep way,
that's what I think.
right? And
Um,
it's like the guy is a genius writer. What can I say?
I mean, it's like Mozart or something like that.
Yeah, that's what
Like,
I'm
how do
saying.
you explain Mozart?
Yeah, how you explain a genius artist? You really don't. The
You
guy
don't.
just do what he just goes
They're
and does what they
there's
do.
there's singular talents that come out of nowhere. You know,
And the thing about art is, I always have this
how do
conversation
you
with
explain
people.
Picasso? How do you
Yes,
explain
yes.
some
I love having this conversation because, artists. I always tell people what the thing about art is the art become a great artist because he go to university or get a master degree? No, that maybe some artists did that. Maybe some artists never did that.
Yeah.
There's amazing artists who actually never went anywhere. It's just connect with the land and create unique language, and people discover then. So this thing about becoming authentic and incredible artist, you really don't need to go to school.
And
You just
sometimes
gotta find yourself.
sometimes I actually think that actually going to an art school is going to narrow
Can
your
mess you up.
can mess you up, can narrow your horizons. So if Shakespeare had gone to a university and sort of done I don't know. We can always what if, what if, what if. But sometimes I think that, they talk about people that when they go to law school, their IQs go down. This is serious. Their IQs go down because they get taught to
Right,
to
right, 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 right,
to think in this very specific legal way.
right.
Their IQs go down because the way that they so Shakespeare, by not having a class, not going to university, and just observing, he was a sponge for everything. Like everything he saw, everything he read. He's a very wide reader, I think, because there's so many references in the plays to other
Right, right.
things.
He was an avid reader.
Yeah, and so it's one of those, like, you don't have to know any of this when you go and see bloody Hamlet. It's an amazing play, and it's endless the different ways you can do it. But you don't have to know anything about Shakespeare. You don't have to know anything about the history at the time, Queen Elizabeth, or the political situation of England at the time. It makes it great once you do know that,
Right,
and you
right,
get all
right.
the
You have more insight.
then you get the obscure references in the play and what he's talking about. But you don't have to do that the first time you see it. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that the first time I see it. It's like you don't have to know how to play the bass when you go and see the Sex Pistols.
Right, right, right. You just enjoyed the
You
music.
don't know have to.
I agree. I agree. Great art presents itself.
Yes.
Right.
You know.
You just get it. You just observe. I agree. You don't need to be a musician to go to a music concert, right? I agree with you. whatever is great and touch people, right?
That's what I think.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think all art, that's why I it kills me when people go, "Oh, I read Shakespeare in school and I hated it." And you're like, "Oh." I mean, Shakespeare, if nobody read Shakespeare at the time. I mean, there was a few people, they'll be writing down at the plays going, because people loved it, and they were like writing it down. They were trying to make some money on the side by publishing it. But Shakespeare never intended it to people to sit at home and go, intellectually, ooh, look at the amazing poetry in this. He's like, yeah, it's amazing, but you're supposed to see it. You're supposed to walk out and go,
Do you think you made me think about something? I always thought about me when I'm telling you, I think great teaching is the capability to take something complex and digest it and present in a very
absolutely,
simple way.
absolutely.
Some people say, "Well, I went to this class with this teacher, and the guy talks so much, I can't understand what the guy's saying." So I tell people, this guy might be a genius. Is a terrible teacher. Is a terrible teacher because the teacher is supposed to take something complex and digest it and make simple. I think Shakespeare is that. He takes this complex social things that happen in society and makes in a way then people can, oh my God, I understand now. This is really about the plotting, the stabbing, the politics. You get really like a, a real uh, sense of what would be in a day to day or that situation.
Well, I think because, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it. All those plays are so rich that when you first time you see it, when you're 20 years old, you go, "Well, I like the fart jokes, and I love this. I love the murders, and I love the action, and and then the next time you see it, you go, oh, I like the." You start to hear the poetry in it, or which that sounds wanky, but you start to go, "Oh, that's brilliant the way that he does that," and you see it in different ways. Just like a good teacher will realize that if you're teaching physics or something, half the people in the audience in your classroom are
Yeah.
not going to understand it. If you
Yeah.
teach it one way, you have to teach it in different ways because people are so different. So people in that audience, people are going to respond to it differently. So that some of them will have seen it before, some of them won't. So they will take different things away from it. Some people hate punk rock Shakespeare. Some people they love their vanilla Shakespeare. They want it served just like this. Some
Right.
people love crazy Shakespeare. Sometimes they like a little bit of bit of both. So that's the great thing about great teachers because they can teach the same thing, but in different ways that other people in the classroom will understand. Exactly the same in Shakespeare. It's just like you might start in punk rock, but then you realize classical, then you hear a bit hip hop, and you get British, the Beatles, or you get all these different influences, and it all starts to fit together, and you become as you get older, you realize more connections. Same with theatre, then you make connection between all the different Shakespeare plays. Then you with modern theatre. Then you see crazy different versions of Shakespeare that people just turn it on its head and you go, wow, that's cool. So that's the thing with art is like you have to experience it
Right.
and you're not going to
Right.
love all of it. But I
Yeah.
definitely think it's not an intellectual thing. It is an intellectual thing because then you can go and study it. You can study art history and understand what
Right.
Impressionism
Right.
was. You can understand what a fugue is, and you can understand what a quartet, or like a symphony is. What's the difference between a fugue and a quartet? I mean, a fugue and a symphony. What's the difference between modern theatre, Mamet versus Shakespeare? But that doesn't mean it has to connect with your guts. It has to connect with your guts
Yeah.
and your heart
I agree.
first. You know what I mean? That's what all art is.
I agree.
You got to stand in front of the band going, "Arr,"
I agree. Yeah. It
and then
has
you
to.
can go, "Oh,
It has to transcend in a way.
it's
Yes.
unless if it doesn't transcend, if it doesn't make you bang your bollocks together, if it doesn't make your stomach, you know, and your
Right.
heart
It doesn't.
race
Doesn't
faster,
do. Yeah.
what's the point?"
True. True. So here it is. Is a Shakespeare the greatest writer ever in history for theater?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, okay. That's a wrap here. Shakespeare is the guy,
He's
man.
that guy.
You know, man,
He's
if
the
you
guy.
watch
He's the boss.
He's rock,
He's
Shakespeare,
the
or
Elvis.
classic,
He's the
you know,
Elvis. He's the
he's still
Mozart.
the guy.
He's the guy.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
Hey, thank you so much, man.
No worries, mate.
To be continued, man.
Cool.
Always
Thanks,
good
mate.
to have you, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. Another great episode about culture shift. A lot more to come and to be continued, baby. Hasta la vista.